between you, the Prime Minister, and your respective colleagues today. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Thank you for having me. Well, look, the fact that we've got this summit up and running is a success story in itself. I'm, as you say, joining the Prime Minister, and I will be working alongside the Defence Secretary, the Environment Secretary, the Transport Secretary, Trade Minister. So this is a very wide-ranging summit. We are already close friends and partners with France. We're looking to enhance that even further still. A lot of focus, quite understandably and quite rightly, has been on the work that we're going to be doing with regard to migration, and particularly illicit migration. But it's a wide-ranging summit, going to cover a lot of areas of work. And the first one in 5 years, I think the fact that, despite the hung parliament, because of the hung parliament, because of COVID, it's been delayed. And the fact we're working together across so many branches of government, I think is a real success.
Is it correct that there could be a deal now in which the United Kingdom will pay an additional £200 million to French government to stop the boats at source, Foreign Secretary?
Well, we have already got a relationship with France whereby we part fund some of their border policing. That has meant that the French authorities have prevented around half of the attempted small boats crossing. So that's something we want to enhance. So yes, we will be discussing the continued part funding of some of that border policing.
What about additional funding, Foreign Secretary? Will there be more funding, it was my question.
Well, that will be part of what we discuss. And I don't want to speculate about what the outcome of these negotiations would be. But the bottom line is, it is in UK's interest to help France prevent those small boats crossing the channel. So that will be part of what we discuss. But ultimately, of course, we also want to discuss working, further along that, further upstream, right, in preventing people from crossing Europe, from crossing France, and ultimately crossing the channel to the UK.
Noting that since 2014, the British government has sent £232 million to Paris to try and stop the crossings, yet we're in the situation we're in. We haven't had bang for the buck. Why don't we pay on results?
So I'm going to push back on that one, Nick, because what we have seen, so the French authorities have been increasing the number of small boats crossings that they have prevented. So they have been doing more. But we are facing an unprecedented increase in the number of attempted crossings. So in the last 3 years for which we have figures, taking one country, and I don't want to pick on Albania. Albania have been working very, very closely with us. We enjoy a good working relationship. We'll take that country for example. 3 years back, for the years we have figures, there were something like 30 attempted crossings by Albanians. In the year following that were 800, and the year following that were 12,000. So there's been a massive, massive increase in the demand. The French authorities have been increasing their interceptions and their preventions against this increased number of attempted crossings. We're going to continue working with them to try and be more effective collectively, because it is a joint endeavour, joint challenge that requires joint solutions.
Some would argue you need to spend more money. The Home Office, it is reported, is facing a £2 billion bill to put migrants in hotels, to accommodate and to feed them. We're looking at possibly an additional £66 million per annum for these beach patrols. That's around 10 days' worth of hotel accommodation. Shouldn't we do this the other way around and look at the scale of what we're sending to France and actually send them a lot more?
Well, look, France are an ally in this endeavour. And it's really important people understand that France has illicit migration challenges, just as the UK, arguably at an even greater scale than we do. They are an ally in resolving this issue. This is why the Prime Minister and President Macron will be discussing what more we can do together to address this issue. As I say, the final agreement that we come to will be negotiated through today, but ultimately we cannot address this alone. We are doing our part through the illegal migration bill to make sure that we do what we can to break the business model of these evil people smugglers who are trading in human lives, putting lives at risk, whether they be crossing the Mediterranean or crossing the Channel. And in parallel to that, we will look to enhance the number of safe and legal routes so that people know that if they are genuinely fleeing persecution and war, there are routes to come to the UK where they can seek protection. If they are economic migrants, there are visa methods where they can apply legitimately. But other than that, people need to understand that if they put themselves in the hands of illegal people smugglers, their attempts to come to the UK will be unsuccessful, and they should therefore save their money, protect their lives, and not rely on people smugglers to get to the UK.
And to those who say these policies are cruel, inhumane, even have echoes of Nazi Germany of the 1930s, how would you respond, Foreign Secretary?
Well, look, there are some people desperate to gain attention by using deeply offensive and inappropriate language about this. And I would gently suggest they read their history books a little bit more carefully. The simple truth of the matter is the UK is a welcoming and hospitable country. Our race relations are some of the best in the world. I think this is not about me, but I look across the table at my parliamentary colleagues, my colleagues around the cabinet table, and the ethnic diversity at the top of the UK government is a direct result of generations of hospitality and generosity by the British people to others from around the world, and that is not going to change. But we have to understand that all countries need to defend and protect their borders. That is one of the first jobs of government. And what we have seen is the legal framework that we have been operating in is no longer fit for purpose when we look at the massive increase in the scale of challenge. And that's why we are putting forward these pragmatic and humane and legal methods to address those issues.
Last couple of things. You'll be aware one newspaper is serialising the diaries of your former colleague Matt Hancock, or the WhatsApp messages that he gave for his pandemic diaries. There seems to be confusion. At one point, the Cabinet said it was Cabinet Office said it was entirely coincidental that COVID was discovered close to a Chinese government laboratory. And there is a report that Matt Hancock was censored by the office over his concern could have been a lab leak. What is the current position of the British government over whether it did or did not start as a lab leak from Wuhan? Foreign Secretary.
So look, we will look at the evidence. We have an inquiry that will look through the government's response to the COVID pandemic. I'm certainly not going to speculate or prejudge that. And again, we look at all the evidence about the origins of this incredibly...
Indeed. So it's not off the table. It is a possibility. The government is at least viewing it as a possibility of a leak.
So we are not going to close off any potential origin options without seeing the evidence. And as I say, I'm not going to delve into the speculation of the details of Matt's Watson.
News just broken you won't have heard. I doubt even your colleagues had. It's being reported that UK's President Zelensky has been denied a request to address the Oscars this Sunday. You'll know he's addressed the Golden Globes, he's addressed award ceremonies in this country. If it is the case that has been denied, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it, Foreign Secretary?
Well, look, I haven't seen the details of that. I've had the privilege of meeting President Zelensky both in Kyiv and in London. I think it's incredibly important that the whole world is reminded of what is happening to Ukraine. A brutal, illegal, unprovoked attempted invasion by Russia, civilian infrastructure damage, civilians being killed, women raped on the battlefield, children being kidnapped and forcibly deported. This is an issue that we cannot silence, we must not silence, and we should be reminded every day about why it's so important that we help the Ukrainians defend themselves against this aggression. So if that is the case, I think it would be a shame.
Lastly, you've been travelling a lot. You won't have had the benefit of seeing some photographs. You and I have known each other for some time, and while I might admire your political skills, can I suggest it's unlikely you'll ever compete in Strictly Come Dancing? I don't know if any of your colleagues have shown you this picture from your visit to Sierra Leone, which must have been very exciting for you, because you went, I understand, to the birthplace of your mother. I have a photograph, Foreign Secretary, of you here. Well, I'm going to call it dancing. Can I suggest the school children looking at... They're not laughing with you, Foreign Secretary. I think they're laughing at your dancing. I would give it about a 1 to Strictly. Do you have a comment on that?
My strong advice. That trip was an amazing trip.
Must be great for you, yeah.
And meeting. I met midwives at the hospital in Bow in Sierra Leone. You know, my mother was
Yes.
a midwife in the
Yes.
NHS the whole time. I would say dance as if no one's looking. And that's certainly the spirit that I entered into, dancing with those children at the school in Bow. The fact that everyone was looking, I make no apology. I'm a rubbish dancer, but I'm loving every minute of it.
All right, thank you for your time. I hope you get success over in Paris, dancing or not. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly appearing on LBC Square at 8:35. Let's go a little bit late to those news headlines and to Thomas Watts.
The Foreign Secretary's told Nick that a British delegation in Paris will discuss possible new funding for French border patrols. He says the meeting with President Macron, led by Rishi Sunak, will be